Hello everybody, my name is Ryan Wallner and today we're going to be talking about IBM Cloud Satellites. So if you're not familiar with IBM Cloud Satellites, it's a ability to use any infrastructure as a satellite location to your IBM Cloud infrastructure. So say you have an IKS cluster in IBM Cloud within an IBM region, and you also have AWS resources or on-prem resources. You can create a satellite location, connect your hosts within that location as part of your infrastructure added to IBM Cloud. Then you can use things like the IBM Cloud Catalog or IBM services to deploy things like Openshift and Portworx directly to your satellite location, giving you the ability to kind of use a multi-cloud workflow. In this case, we're going to be talking about IBM Cloud Satellites with PX Backup. So we're going to have two different locations, one in AWS as a cloud satellite running Red Hat OpenShift, and one IKS cluster in IBM Cloud, and show that you can back up Kubernetes applications from your satellite location and redeploy them to your IKS IBM Cloud location. So here I have my satellite user interface in IBM Cloud. Let's go to my locations and click on my PX Backup satellite we have. So it is located on the East Coast, and we have a number of hosts in here, and services that we have deployed is OpenShift. So here we have an OpenShift cluster as our satellite. We'll dive into this a little deeper in a second. But I wanted to show you is if you had a satellite like this and you wanted to deploy Portworx, simply head over to the catalog within IBM Cloud, search for Portworx, click on Enterprise, Portworx Enterprise, and this gives you sort of a pay-as-you-go model to deploy Portworx. One thing that you can do here is select your region, such as my East Coast region that I have my satellite in, click the subscription plan, such as DR or just Enterprise. I'm just going to select Enterprise here. I'm going to paste my API key, give my cluster a name, and what you'll find is that if you have configured your satellite location, the PX Backup satellite, which we're working out of, you'll be able to select and deploy Portworx directly to that cluster. Now, for sake of demo purposes, I've already gone ahead and done this, so Portworx is already deployed on my satellite location. So let's head back over to our OpenShift cluster. So Portworx is up and ready to go in our satellite location. Now, we have an application deployed to this cluster within the demo namespace. This application is a Postgres server, which also has a web front end, which talks to this Postgres server, and a single persistent volume claim that is using Portworx on the satellite location. Within PX Backup, we can see both of our clusters here. So we have an IBM satellite in AWS and a PX Backup demo IKS cluster. And you can see the versions here show us that we have IKS cluster and an OpenShift satellite here. So what do these applications look like? So what we've done is expose this application as a node port. And what we can do is simply add some clicks to the screen. And when you refresh, those clicks are actually recorded to that Postgres database and persisted to a Portworx volume. So what I might want to do now is take a backup of my application in the satellite location and move it to IKS. So what I can do now is head over to IBM satellite cluster within PX Backup, select my namespace. And here we can see that there are a number of different resources, such as the deployments, persistent volume claim, and a label. So I'm going to click on this label, which is our application, which captures everything I need. Now I'm going to click Backup, and I'm going to select the name. So I'm going to give it a name. I'm going to select my location. In terms of object storage location, you would want to set up either your IBM object storage backup location in PX Backup, or you can use other things like S3 in this case. You can back up on a schedule or just back up as a single backup like we're doing right now. When you're ready, click Create, and this will back up the persistent volume claims and the resources in Kubernetes, everything that you need to redeploy this to your IKS cluster. Now, in our IKS cluster, we do have this application already running. Note that it is running with a different restore point. So in IKS, which I can show over here in my terminal, let's connect to our IKS cluster really quick. Now, if I do kubectl get pod in the demo namespace, we can see that the web application and Postgres is actually running. And what we can do is expose the counter service locally through proxying and see here that it doesn't have any data, right? So it's deployed at sort of its base case, the initial backup we restored to this cluster. Now, we added data to our satellite location. So data exists in our satellite location, but not in our IKS cluster. So what we've gone ahead and done is create a backup. Now, we can restore this backup to our IKS cluster. And to do this is give it a name, and all you have to do is select the IKS cluster. Now we backed up from the satellite location, but now we restore to the IKS cluster. We want a custom restore. In this case, we actually want the same demo namespace, so we don't need a custom restore, but we do want to make sure to replace the existing resources since it is actually already deployed in our cluster. So now, when you're ready, click Restore, and that restore job will restore the data first and then all the resources. So what we can do is take a look at our pods here. And what we should see, since we said it replace existing resources, what will happen is that these pods will be refreshed once the data underneath them is restored. You can get these sort of details of what's happening by looking at the PX Backup UI or showing details within here. You can see that the application restore is in progress. So this tells me that it's moved on past the volume and going to the application. So now if we get the pods in here, we can see that they're terminating and the new ones will come online. Again, this restore will change from in progress to success once it's complete. Yes, so we have 1 volume, Portworx volume, and 7 resources. And our pod is now running, and Postgres is coming online. And it should come into a running state very shortly. Okay, now our pod is restored in about 48 seconds. So now what we can do is expose our counter service on the IKS cluster again. And now when we refresh, there's our data, right? So what we've effectively done is add data to our Openshift satellite location and restore it to our IKS location, and it's the same data. So, this is a good way to sort of either have a movement or migration for test and dev, or if you just want some sort of business continuity in terms of having backups from your satellite location and want to restore them into IKS, this is also a really good use case for that. So this kind of shows you that you can use PX Backup with IBM Cloud as well as IBM Cloud Satellites even if you're running different Kubernetes versions. This is 118.3 in the satellite and 119.9 in IKS and IBM Cloud. And we can back up and restore across those IBM resources in the cloud. I hope this was useful, and until next time, take care.